So I made a friend, Andrew Barr from Producing in the Box, and man, does this guy provide a lot of value. He works almost exclusively with virtual instruments, virtual amps, and he even uses the Slate virtual microphone system. Seriously, you can't get more in the box than this guy, and he's an awesome producer. So Andrew and I connected and decided to send some tracks to each other so that he could work with some live drums and instruments, and I could work with some of the virtual elements that he deals with on a regular basis. Now, Andrew mixes drums completely different than I do. He uses the top-down method, a method that I never use, therefore I can never teach. So right now I'm gonna send it over to Andrew for a lesson in top-down mixing.
I almost never work with live drums. I always use MIDI kits and samples. So Joel was nice enough to send over some files for me to mess around with, and that's what I'm gonna show you today. Whether I am using MIDI drums or real drums, I still do the same mixing technique. I use a top-down approach. If you use Slate digital plugins, I have free presets for you. Just scroll down and click the link in the description and you can download those for free. I'm going to be using one of those presets in this song today. So now let's jump on into the DAW and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I've mixed the whole song and this is what it sounds like. And hear what the drums sound like by themselves. So there are 12 tracks in total. And one thing that I always do first is I make sure that I get an overall balance first before I do any processing whatsoever. So hear what the drums sound like raw, but I have adjusted the volume. So once I have all the volume setting about where I want it, I will take all of the tracks and I will route it to a bus. In Studio One, you can just select all of the tracks, right click, and then select Pack to Folder. That's what I have it here. And then you can actually click this little drop-down menu and click Add Bus Channel, but I already have the channel set up here and it's called Drums. So now all the drums go to this drum bus and then the drum bus goes to the main out. Sometimes I will send the room mics to their own individual bus, but I decided not to for this mix because I liked the way everything glued together when I put it in the same bus as the rest of the shells. So before I touch any individual tracks, I will start mixing on the drum bus itself. That is top-down mixing. So I have a little bit of compression, EQ, more compression, and then a little bit of revival, adding some shimmer and just a touch of thickness. And this is what it sounds like now. Without it, with it. See how I'm getting a little bit more snap out of that snare drum? I'm getting a little bit of clarity, and I'm kind of compressing everything together and gluing it all in. This is part of my free presets here. I'm just literally using the drum bus preset, so you can get those for free. There will be a link in the description. So now once I have that set up, now I can go to the individual channels and start messing around. So now let me show you what the kick sounds like. So I'm just adding a gate here. I am adding some EQ. I have a actually massive boost around 3.4 to get some of that clickiness, a little bit of compression, another EQ, and then revival again to add some thickness. So I'm really just kind of tightening it in and gluing it together, and then I am just adding that gate to kind of really make sure that everything's tight and there's not a whole bunch of bleed. Now for the snare, it's pretty similar. I have a gate, I have an EQ, a compressor, and then revival again, but I'm also adding an instance of trigger too, and I am adding some samples that I'm blending in with the original snare. So this is set at 65% because I still want to hear some of the original snare, but I really want to blend these samples in. And the reason I like these samples is because one thickens the snare up a little bit, and the other one actually adds a decent amount of reverb and room to it. So this is what the snare sounds like. And then without trigger 2. So I just have that main snare sample and then the snare thickener sample. And I just blend those two together and add it and blend it in with the original snare drum. So let's take a listen to what it sounds like in the context of the mix.
Don't put up those walls again. Let me see all the things that make you move and feel alive.
So it really adds a little bit of clarity and punch, and I really just love what it does with that room sample as well. So now I really want to stress the importance of the drum bus processing. I'm just going to turn off the processing on the drums. Everything else will stay on, but I'm just going to turn off the drum bus processing, and we'll hear it in the context of the mix. As you can tell, it is pretty important. It brings it out in the mix and glues everything together. Once again, there is a link in the description for these presets. So not only did Joel send me some stuff to work on, I also sent him some stuff to work on as well. And I sent him MIDI drums. So if you want to know how he did with my samples, head over to my channel and watch his video there. So thank you for watching. And now as always, go create.
Guys, if you learned something from Andrew, feel free to download his free presets, or better yet, go subscribe to his channel. All links will be in the description, and don't forget to head over to his channel to see what I did with the tracks he sent me.